krossa sionismen.
Leve Palestina och krossa sionismen. Leve, leve, leve Palestina. Leve, leve, leve Palestina. Leve Palestina och krossa sionismen. Leve Palestina och krossa sionismen.
Och vi har odlat jorden.
Och vi har odlat jorden.
Och vi har skördat vetet.
Och vi har skördat vetet.
Vi har plockat citronerna.
Och vi har plockat citronerna.
Och pressat oliverna.
Och pressat oliverna.
For those who know me, I don't find it always easy when talking about things like this. Because you see the scale of it. So excuse me if I get emotional. I don't feel I have the right to, if I'm perfectly honest. But I can't help if I do. So I'm sorry. I don't think it's my right to. But there we go. That's that. So yeah, I'm just gonna I'll read a little bit to explain. So thank you for coming. I'm not going to speak for long, but just to say a few words to reference why we have gathered. As we stand here with these shoes laid out, we acknowledge and remember the lives of the young, innocent people whose futures have been taken from them so brutally and needlessly by the actions of the Israeli Defence Forces. At this stage, we know of at least 17,000 young people who have been killed, and we all know that this figure will rise much, much higher when the eventual death toll is calculated. I, like many of you, find it hard to contemplate, hard to fully understand the magnitude of death and destruction that has been inflicted on the Palestinian people, on the people of Gaza, on these innocent children and their families. And it is worth noting, we have about 3,000 pairs of shoes here. If we had achieved 16,000, you would see the immense scale of that. I know many of us are too frightened to get into the politics of the situation, too unsure of the reality, too nervous to get it wrong. And whilst going into the politics of it all is not the purpose of today, there is no getting it wrong in talking about this. The wrong of, as Amnesty International have said, Israel committing genocide on the Palestinian people. These shoes are here to remember and to remind us of those most vulnerable who have been the ultimate victims of this genocide, the innocent. Whilst the death toll currently sits at around 46,000 people, the real eventual number will be much more likely to be closer to 100,000. These numbers are so large, it's hard to contemplate, hard to place it in reality. And it is the personal that reminds us of this reality, of the individuals, the children that are being slaughtered on the destroyed streets of Gaza. And I want to acknowledge some of those children here. First, there are a pair of roller skates in these shoes, right in the middle. And they are placed here specifically to remember and acknowledge Tala Abu Ajwa, who was killed by an Israeli missile strike whilst rollerblading near her home in northern Gaza. Her father, Abu, said that day she insisted on playing outside, and I agreed. But the Israeli occupation missiles are faster than the kids who want to play and be happy. And then there is Lana. Lana was 4 years old when she was brutally shot by the IDF. Lana was my friend Mohammed's niece. Mohammed and I studied peace studies together many years ago, and I want to read you a bit of the messages I have been receiving from Mohammed over the last few months. What happened to me and my family personally is something unbelievable and incomprehensible to the mind. You can imagine that I woke up that day to the sound of missiles, explosions and bombardment from the air, and the sea and the land. Destruction of homes, bodies in the street, destruction of infrastructure and all its components. No communications, no working phones, and nothing but escaping from the house with my family in only pyjamas, and trying to hide here and there, and bombing from above and around us. We did not know where to go or where to hide. Screaming around us, children, women and the elderly, and everyone was running without knowing. Mohammed was Director General of Refugee Affairs in Gaza. Myself and a number of colleagues had been able to help Mohammed find a way out of Gaza after many, many difficulties some months ago. But he was only able to leave and travel with 3 other family members. He goes on in his message. I left behind me in Gaza my daughter and her 3-year-old son and my sister and her 3 daughters. We always stayed in one tent waiting for our fate, which we did not know. I was in particular hugging the children from the fear and terror caused by the sound of the blasts, which do not differentiate between anyone at all. I was talking to them about peace, about my previous studies, about you, dear colleagues, about your love and loyalty to us, until a bullet treacherously struck the head of my niece, who I was embracing during the day as I was there with them in Gaza, and she moved to her Lord's side yesterday. You can imagine how I was talking to them about what I have previously written to you about non-violence, about there is nothing more precious than the soul. My beloved Lana has gone, and I hope that God will protect her and protect the rest of my people and my family, for they are the ones who pay the tax for this scheme and for this dirty world in which we live. I wanted to end on Mohammed's words. However, I felt that that would let us off the hook, because hearing and knowing about the pain and torture of the Palestinian people is something that has been happening for years and years. The only real difference this time is that we are watching it all happen in live action on our phones, our tablets and our TVs. There is no denying its reality. A reality that I know can be really hard to take on board. However, the bit that I find difficult to understand is how we, and the we I refer to is the majority of the Western world, particularly those in positions of political power, it seems to me can sit and watch and scroll through short clips and pictures, social media content, when towns and cities are destroyed, when refugee camps and tents are bombed, when hospitals are blown to pieces, when people are burnt alive and children are shot dead. Yes, this is hard to hear, but that is nothing compared to how hard it would be to experience it and to do so over and over and over again. This horror, however, is only made possible as a result of the support and acceptance of governments from around the world. And whilst I started by saying this was not about the politics, it is holding the politics and the politicians to account that will make it stop. And we must do more to make that happen. The ICC ruling to issue arrest warrants for the Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defence Minister Yoav Gallant is only the beginning. I have said it often. It is not that no one is doing anything, but not enough people are doing something. And more of us must take action to call them to account. Otherwise, the longer this goes on, the more people will die, the more children will die, and the more empty shoes that we will be laying out to remember them. This horror must end now, and we must continue to call it to end. The shoes will be left here for the next 2 hours, and I encourage you to share that you are here, that they are here, to ensure that our Palestinian friends know that we stand with them, that the aggressors who are perpetrating this genocide know that we see what they are doing and we call it out. We must not be silent or silenced. We must speak of Fala, we must speak of Lana, we must speak of Gaza, and we must speak of Palestine. Thank you very much.
Liebe Palästina, großer Zionismen. Liebe, liebe, liebe Palästina. Liebe, liebe, liebe Palästina. Liebe Palästina, großer Zionismen. Liebe Palästina, großer Zionismen.
Vi har odlat jorden
Vi har odlat jorden
och vi har skördat vetet.
och vi har skördat vetet.
Vi har plockat citronerna
Vi har plockat citronerna
och pressat oliverna.
och pressat oliverna.
Och hela världen känner till vår jord.
Och hela världen känner till vår jord. Leve, leve, leve Palestina. Leve, leve, leve Palestina. Leve Palestina och krossa sionism.